Yeah, okay. So Jane's just going to talk a little bit about the Compassion Project then.
So hi everyone, my name is Jane Marshall. I'm happy to be here tonight with Christy and with JCI. I'm the founder and a co-founder and director of the Compassion Project. So we're really grassroots level charity. And we work through the community with the community members and with the chief who lives up there. So Zoom is very remote. You can only get there by foot. There's no road access. And so medical care and education have been really far behind in terms of the rest of the country and definitely the rest of the world. So we work together to provide basic healthcare and education for the community there. So we run a health center and we employ staff there to serve the community, especially with birth needs and all kinds of things from cuts and bruises and stitches to helping women give birth in a safe environment. And we also run a kindergarten. So we're giving early education opportunities to our students. So yeah, Christy and I were talking a little bit about it before and how this all connects. But tonight, we're sharing what we know about health and about mental health. And at the same time, the donations from this evening's event are enabling us to provide health for people across the world in Sune Valley, Nepal. So it's a beautiful connection that's occurring through technology and through being here together. So I'm just thrilled to be part of this with all of you, and yeah, looking forward to working with stress tonight.
Awesome. Thank you, Jane. Yeah, so as Jane mentioned, kind of the working on ourselves tonight with stress in the body is also providing the opportunity for others to have access to health. And what's interesting is that we're also in a global pandemic. And so there is this health crisis kind of happening and affecting everyone around the world. And so we all have a different level of access. We're all having different levels of impact from this unprecedented time that we're in. I know a lot of people might have heard maybe the analogy that, you know, we're all in the same storm, but we don't necessarily have the same boat, which I think is a really good way to kind of reflect that, like, we are all being impacted by this, and the boat being access, information access, medical care access. It's variable. And so like Jane said, we are both yoga teachers. We both have quite a long history of understanding the body, understanding the physiology of the body and the mental processing that goes along with studying yoga and meditation. And also are feeling the impacts of stress in our own lives as well. And so what we wanted to talk tonight about is how we can utilize the body as a tool to facilitate navigating what might be a little bit less concrete. And so some of these things that, you know, it's been a year now in the pandemic and it's influenced us in different ways. And, you know, you might feel physically one way, but the mental, psychological toll of this time, it does end up coming down into the body. And so what I wanted to share with you first was this idea that the impact of our body is so much more than just our physical experience, you know, of, are we physically exercising, what we're eating? Yes, that all of course will affect our physiology, but as well, how we're thinking, how we're feeling. And while that might seem a little bit separate from the body, like my thoughts are kind of in this ethereal mind, like where is the mind even? So with that, it's fun. But these things can seem a lot more intangible, but what I can offer you as an idea to bring it into the body is that what you are thinking in the mind is actually producing a physical secretion of hormones in the body. And so if you have this same patterning, this same loop of maybe really scary thoughts or a lot of anxious thoughts, or if you start to replay the same cycle of thoughts, those thoughts will trigger a hormonal response. You can think of it as your thoughts kind of liquefy into hormones, and this liquid hormone gets absorbed into the cells. They're almost like a key code. Each hormone has its own individual key code, which gets put into the lock of your cell and will release certain secretions. And so similarly, sometimes if you think of something really, really happy, maybe your favorite place, a really great experience, you might have that rush or that overwhelm. You're thinking of your favorite person. You get this overwhelm of good emotions, because similarly, those thoughts come with their own hormonal secretion of, serotonin or oxytocin that comes into the body and will send a really good hormonal relief. And so I'm not saying this to put more pressure on, like, great, now I'm having hard thoughts and now that's going into my body. That's why we'll go into some of the practices to just be embodiment practices to start to feel the physiological effects of these more subtle things that we're interacting with our emotions, with our minds. And so when we think of stress, we think of the stress of our daily lives today. But if you take a step back, the human, Homo sapiens evolved over millions of years. And so our evolution as a species is much slower. Our evolution to be able to stand upright, to have these different perceptions. But the evolution of our environment since the 80s to now has been quite quick with technology, a lot more stimulus. We have a lot more information. We have a lot more kind of bombarding our senses. And while if we gave ourselves 1 million years to catch up with that, our bodies would be more prepared to deal with the environmental change that we're living in. And so I've seen it often with the news or with TV shows. It's just like, how can they make it brighter? How can they make it more stimulating? How can they have, I don't know if you've noticed, but my local news now just isn't just a newscaster. They have a ticker at the bottom with like, here's the news into stories, and like, here's the newscaster, but also on the side, like, here's how the stock market has changed. And they've done that because our brains are almost getting bored if they're not like, what's next up here? Look, like I'm overstimulated. And that's how they're having to keep our attention, is by continually overstimulating us. And I was reading an article the other day that I found really interesting, in that even when we, sorry, Stephanie, I didn't mean to give you anxiety.
I know, I was feeling that too, but it builds up, right? And you're like, yes, what do I have to do? What do I have to see? What do I have to deal with? Yeah. And it like literally creates a response in your body. Like my heart rate accelerated. So I get what your comments.
and they do it that way very intentionally. And, even if you thought about before, 10 years ago, you would be sitting at a red light and there's nothing to do for that 30 seconds. Maybe you didn't listen to the radio, but even without the radio, you had at least 30 seconds a day to process in that like silent time while you were at a red light, what's going on. If you were standing in the checkout line, like that was boring, but at least you had a moment of stillness and a little bit of boredom to kind of be like, oh, like, what am I feeling? Like, oh, that actually did feel weird. And now it's like there's no break of stimulus. You can just be on your phone while you're standing in line. You can be, listening to a podcast while you're driving in the car. It's just like this constant bombardment. And it's not often now that we have built into our environment an opportunity to digest all that's coming in. And so maybe like once you start to take some of these embodiment practices home with you, you can start to feel like, oh yeah, like Jane said, even me just talking about it, Stefan as well had the body awareness to be like, wow, that felt like a lot. And so what we're trying to do in these practices is build our capacity to self-reflect in more integrative ways throughout our day, so that we have a better understanding of, is this environment something that is supportive for me? Is this, how can I change it? Do I need to breathe? Do I need to like reduce my capacity? There's all of these ways we can navigate and kind of untangle the situation that we're in, but we have to give ourselves an opportunity to see it and to feel it first, because otherwise it is kind of just becomes this like tunnel that you keep following blindly, and then you're like, I had no idea I was so stressed, until you have adrenal fatigue or until something comes crashing down with you physically, where your body is like, wake up, I actually hate this. My one teacher always uses the acronym of PAIN, means pay attention inside now. And that is one of your body's last, in desperation, will really shout at you physically, to listen to the things that they're subtly, there are hints much earlier, before you have full-blown adrenal fatigue. So while our physiology is evolves at a capacity much slower than our environment, we can start to have a different understanding of our body, maybe with a little more compassion, because historically the way our bodies were created was the original stressors of life were getting chased by a tiger, going through a famine. These were the kind of big stressors that our body had to respond to. So, if you're about to get chased by a tiger, your adrenal glands, these walnut-sized glands just above the back of the low back, will take all of your energy away from your organs and shoot it into your limbs so that you can run away from that tiger. And it actually takes a lot of effort for the body, and also a lot of depletion from vital areas of the body in order to redirect that much energy to get rid of a tiger. Unfortunately, we feel the adrenaline of too many emails, and our body doesn't understand that what's causing us stress is an email and not a tiger, because it doesn't know what an email is. Give it a million years and maybe it will know, the threat of emails.
Okay, living in Canmore, we have the emails, the text messages, the ticker, and we have bears right outside our door.
Exactly.
So there is still the tiger influencing us.
We still have to prepare to run from a bear.
Yes, not all the time, so you're right.
Yeah. But yeah, and so we can have a lot of compassion for our bodies, that it's trying to help us, and it just doesn't understand why would we, basically living in a tiger cage, aka our inbox. And the other stress hormone is cortisol, and cortisol is kind of the slow acting stress hormone that would basically help us to survive a famine. Because of course, millions of years ago, drought, famine in the environment could produce highs and lows of food. And so what cortisol will do is it's more of a slow burning stress hormone. And it will bring glucose into the blood to try and allow us to stay alive. It will redirect our body to start eating away at muscle tissue instead of fat tissue, because the muscle tissue is more dense with nutrients than fat is. It will also contribute to kind of a layer of fat around the organs to try and isolate and protect the organs and keep them warm and functioning. So again, our body would perceive this kind of constant stress in our life to be something like a famine, but instead it could just be like the constant stress of everyday life, really. Yes, Stefan.
Sorry, I don't know if this is it okay if I ask a question?
Yeah, please.
I mean, the reason I tuned into this is because I believe so wholeheartedly in taking time for oneself and the identification of self-worth that comes with what you're talking about, which is, partially meditation, doing what you need to do for yourself. So why do you guys think that people these days and identifying in their lives and in these scenarios is so important to, what the topic is, which is, I guess, is stress reduction, or at least identification of stressors. So I find that interesting that you're commenting on survivability, and some of us aren't surviving right now. So why is that so important?
Yeah, it absolutely is so important, because like we were saying with the environment, and that like taking these times to do the embodiment practice will give you an opportunity to sense these things into your body. And so I only say these things to bring body awareness and understanding of how the body is responding and reacting, so that, again, at least for me, when I learned this stuff, it changed my relationship to stress, in that almost like my body, you know, it is important to notice if the emails are stressing you out, because your body thinks it's a tiger and it loves you and it's trying to protect you from a tiger. And so that's actually really sweet of your body to do. And so, and just understanding the limitations of our body, in that like we can't talk it out of not reacting this way. And so what we can do is we can build that environment of creating space to have embodiment practices to notice what is causing those stressors. And so we'll get into this in the practice portion of things, but for example, just leading into this with a lot of hip movements, most people have tight hips. Most people have really, really tight hips, and doing something like a pigeon pose, when you're sitting on the chair, and, you know, even if you were to do this into the chair, where you bring your right foot kind of flexed and you're sitting into pigeon and you can kind of come forward, a lot of people will feel incredible pain. It'll feel incredibly tight and uncomfortable. And that's because the adrenal glands are pumping adrenaline into this tissue, and it gets kind of soaked up by this psoas muscle. And so it becomes interesting when you come into a pose like this, and it feels really tough and it feels really uncomfortable. But what you're doing in your body is you're actually untangling everything that has given you stress. Because if you have a feeling of anxiety and it's pumping adrenaline into your body, that stays into your tissues. And so when you start to work into the body, what you're actually doing is kind of massaging those tissues and releasing those emotions. You're releasing the pent up energy or residual effects of all of this stress. So yes, there's definitely ways to work with it. And I find in working in the body becomes this opportunity to not only give yourself space and time to navigate where you're at, but actually work through and untangle what has already been given. So what's already happened in the body, it's already happened. And so there's no need to beat yourself up over that or get really anxious or frightened that like, oh, my body's like really responding. You just start to work into the cells. And so there's also a really great stress response that a lot of people experience called tend and mend. And so one of the early stress responses, particularly in women, if there was a tiger that came into the community and you were 9 months pregnant, it doesn't matter how much adrenaline you have, you're not going to be able to outrun it. And the body knew that. And the body knew that as a pregnant woman, you know, you have lost this one opportunity for survival. And so what women tend to do is they tend and they mend their communities. And so if you have a strong relationship with your community, if you have a strong relationship with other people, should a tiger enter the community, you have tended and mended the people around you, and you will probably survive because somebody is going to save you or somebody is going to fight that tiger on your behalf. And so tending and mending in a time of stress is actually another way to, another stress response. And tending and mending is also produces oxytocin. So that's called the hugging hormone. That's the hormone that new mothers have when they put their baby on their chest. And it creates that bond. It's a bonding hormone. So that's also another opportunity when stress arises, in that, there are these fear responses, but there's also this opportunity to take care of each other and to ensure that the people around you are thriving, because that honestly is how we're all going to get through this, is that, if even in the community that we're in now, if somebody has a low and the people around them have the capacity to kind of tend and mend that and help that person, then the whole community benefits. And I think that's a really great outlook, especially in the times that we're in right now. And also understanding that there is a community around you to help you when you need some tending and mending yourself. And know that gives them oxytocin,
which feels good.
Yeah. So being taken care of, you're giving the other person a really good bonding hormone. So that's also just a really good indicator that reaching out for help in times of stress is a good thing.
Can I just add a little thing too?
Please.
So I feel like with stress, like how I experience stress, or at least how I used to experience stress, is that when I would feel it, maybe I'd get heart palpitations or pain, and I would want to run away from those feelings. I would want to distract myself or just ignore it. And the last thing I wanted to feel was stress. So, distracting in whatever way. And yet what I ultimately realized when my body wouldn't let me ignore it anymore, I slowly realized that the way through stress is into it, which is so counterintuitive. Really the last thing you want to do if you're having a panic attack or having a totally crap day, or your finances are in a complete chaos with COVID, the last thing you want to do is sit and feel that, right? However, it's so valuable not to dwell in it or be attached to it, but to just sit with the discomfort and then use these techniques that Christy is going to show and that I'll later show to actually be with what's uncomfortable and let it work itself through. It's it's showing you that it needs your attention. You give it some attention and work with it and sit with that uncomfortableness. And then that's what really I have found, just personally, that's what's allowed it to process and then move through. And then I have more space after. And then it's like the monster under the bed, right? When you're feeling the stress and it's terrifying, you want to push it away, you don't want to look, you're I don't want to look at that. And yet when you actually do look at it, you realize it's not as scary as you thought. It's maybe uncomfortable, but it's not as magnified as the mind sometimes makes it. So I love how you talk about being compassionate about the stress that you're feeling, because it's like a signal, and then you sit with it and you work with it to move through it. Mm-hmm. So that's just something that I've experienced personally and in my own practice and in my teaching as well.
Yeah, I really love that. And it reminds me too of this idea of I don't want to say claiming it, but we can also see ourselves sometimes as these floating heads. So all of our thoughts are we imagine them to be kind of in this space, and we just float up here thinking in our heads, and all of these things are coming at us. And I had one teacher say that if it's something you can't perceive with your senses right now, so even if you just close your eyes right now and you can perceive the sounds around you, those are here. Maybe there's really quiet sounds. Maybe there's really loud sounds, that you can hear them. Maybe you can hear some sounds within your body. Maybe you hear the breath. Maybe you hear the gentle pulse of the heart. And you can start to feel what you feel in the body. Maybe you feel heaviness into the sit bones, or the pulsation of blood through the body. Maybe you can feel the temperature around the skin. You can start to taste what's in the mouth. And start to notice the breath in through the nostril. Maybe there's a smell. And start to feel through all or any of your 5 senses as they're happening. And feel my body. I can smell the air. I can hear the sounds. And I can taste the tastes. Take a deep breath in through the belly and just sigh out the mouth. And so you can open your eyes. Anything that you experience that isn't perceptible without those 5 senses is imaginary. So we have an imagined past and we have an imagined future. And anything that isn't happening in through those doorways at this moment is something that the mind is constructing and reliving in the past, or it's something that it's projecting into the future, but it's not here. And so I call these embodiment practices because it is coming back into the body. It comes back into this grounding sense of like, what is here? What am I feeling? And just having a little bit of grace and maybe even like a chuckle that everything else is made up in the mind. It feels really real and it feels really true sometimes, but it's completely imagined. Like the future is it's not real, it's imaginary. We project ourselves forward and we relive the past, but the past also isn't here. That's all just imaginary into the mind. And so we kind of move from this like thinking, knowing, maybe those feelings, of having to go through all the things that cause us all the feelings. I won't relive them. But we go from the thinking mind into a cellular knowing. And I think that's also something that gets forgotten, is that our body knows. And while we go through the day living our lives, thinking and constructing our way through things through the mind, the body also is perceiving all of these little tiny interactions with our environment, and they're picking them up and they're understanding them in ways that are so infinite and diverse. And there's just so much knowledge into the body. And that's what we want to connect into and to help manage these stressors. So I think we'll get into that. Before we do, I just wanted to share a couple of maybe like helpful tips, practical tips for navigating stress and the environment of stress. And so one of those is sleep. Sleep is really important. When we're sleeping, our metabolism, a lot of our major functions of the body, they take a break. And so our metabolism slows down and it gives our body time to detoxify. So actually while we're sleeping, the subtle cells of our body go through and kind of scrape our organs and they clean them out. It's one of the reasons why when you wake up in the morning, you have to pee, because your body has been clearing and scraping and you're detoxifying when you urinate in the morning. It's also why your tongue has that fuzzy stuff and you kind of have bad breath, is because your body has like detoxified and brought all this stuff to the surface while you were sleeping. So waking up, going to the washroom, even like showering, brush your teeth, all of that is just like actually taking those toxins that your body has taken from deep into the tissues and brought them to the surface. You just slough it off, clean it off. One of the things to help you get more sleep is creating a bit of a routine before bed that involves no screen time. And I know we're all over bombarded with screens right now, but I just wanted to share some like physiological process of why. So in the center of our forehead is a gland called the pineal gland. And this gland is responsible for creating melatonin and serotonin in our body. And so this gland can actually perceive light. And prehistoric times, sans screens and electricity, we would use the sun. And so as the sun went down, we would be living in an environment void of light. And so that's our body's signal to start producing melatonin, and it's time to go to sleep. And in the morning when the light rose, the pineal gland would start producing serotonin and give us energy to wake up. And so we kind of live in this constructed environment where we are watching TV maybe right before bed, scrolling on our phones, and our body doesn't know the difference between the light of a screen and the sun. And so if you stay up looking at a screen until right before bed, your pineal gland potentially is still secreting a lot of serotonin to keep you awake and to keep you active. And so that could be why some people have a hard time falling asleep before bed. And so again, our body is like this primal thing that just wants to be in nature. And so we can support it by giving little rituals around no light. Start to dim the lights, maybe turn off the TV, read a book. My favorite way to go to sleep is a toddler. Like, I like a bath, I like a little snack. I like to have a bedtime story and then go to bed. Like, I think toddlers really, they have the ideal life for bedtime routines.
Because it works for them. Their parents know it works, and that's what puts them to sleep.
Yeah, because
routine.
You kind of get like more tired, and your body's like, oh, I know this. I know a bath means it's almost time for bed, and a bedtime story means like we're winding down, and we're not just going full force to like, why am I not sleeping? And so we can kind of support the hormones in that way. The other thing is you are what, there's a saying, you are what you eat. And I like that, yes. But I would further that to say you are what you digest. And so you basically, if your body can't digest it, try to eat less of it. So anything in your body that isn't digested within 18 hours kind of ends up sitting into the body, fermenting, getting kind of old and toxic and whatnot. And so just starting to notice and support yourself that way, eating foods that your body likes and enjoys. And can digest. And so that's different for everyone. And I also just like throwing out the book of like, who cares what the fad diet is and what they tell you to eat? Like, does your body digest it? Does your body like it? And stick to that as a guide. They'll tell you eggs are good for you one time, then eggs are bad for you, and then they're good for you again. But if your body can't digest eggs, then just try to avoid it. And the other thing is, multitasking and leaking your energy. I always used to think that multitasking was the thing that made me a rock star, that I could, set up all these processes to go from here to there to here to there. And, I'd be on a phone call while I'm running a program, while I'm eating, like drinking a tea or whatnot. But your mind actually can't focus on more than one thing at a time. And so this is where the meditation practice becomes really helpful with concentration. Because again, with that overstimulus of our environment, we can become very used to like we've become really, really short with our time span, our attention span. If you've noticed, blogs or news articles have gotten shorter and shorter and shorter because they know we don't have the attention span to read it all, nor do we want to. But what meditation can really help with is expanding that capacity to stay with things. And like Jane said, staying with the emotions, staying with how you're feeling, and not distracting or moving on from it. And so the practice can be really helpful in that. I always like to say in class, or for meditations, people are like, I can't meditate. I can't. Everybody, if you tell anyone you teach meditation, the first thing they'll tell you is they can't meditate.
Yeah.
Everyone. But it's interesting because the mind, and I won't go into this too much, but like the ego mind, it wants to keep you at a certain level. So if you're sitting there and you're about to have like a breakthrough through your meditation, it's like everything is going to try and take you out of it first. Your knee is going to hurt, and it's the end of the world. My knee hurts and my back aches. And like, it's going to be the end of the world. Like, it basically tries to convince you that it's the end of the world if you stay with it. And the magic really happens is when you stay with it anyway, and it doesn't mean the end of the world. But I think I went a little too woo-woo with that. So those are some tips. I won't talk too much about the ego and whatnot. But yeah, so let's maybe do a little bit of a practice. So we can do it from a seat. And I'll just get you to close your eyes. Stefan, please do not close your eyes. But I want you to, and you can do this without closing your eyes, but you can sense into the body while still engaging with the external world. And that becomes a cool practice too. So just close the eyes and then start to feel what you feel. You start to feel the outline of your body, maybe the weight into your sit bones. What does it feel like to let the body be heavy? And while the body is heavy, can you start to bring your attention into the belly and relax the belly? To allow yourself to have a soft, full belly. And it's totally natural if that feels a bit foreign. Maybe you're used to the narrative of sucking in your tummy or trying to keep it all in. Just relax and let it all out. Just notice how that creates more room for your organs. Again, falling into the hips and the weight of your body. And then feel the feet rooting into the earth. So putting both feet flat onto the floor. And you can even imagine with the mind's eye that there are roots growing from the soles of the feet and connecting down into the earth. With the mind's eye, you can bring the energy of the earth up through the feet, the legs, and nourish the belly. Start to bring the breath into the space of the belly, breathing low and deep, taking full, soft breaths. Take a 3-part yogic breath. And this breath originates low into the belly. So breathing wide and open through the belly. And then feel the breath rising up through the lungs, the lower lungs, the upper lungs. And then start to feel the breath kind of peek into the throat. And then reverse it, releasing through the throat, the upper chest, the lower chest, and the navel slowly softens toward the spine. Just continue to breathe this way. The inhale starts low and deep in the body. And then feel it rising through the center of the chest. And then maybe at the peak, you just pause for a moment and soften your shoulders. And then reverse that exhale. The chest softens and the low belly relaxes. Let's take 2 more breaths like that. Starting to feel your inner rhythm and movement. You can gently blink open the eyes. Then bring your right ear towards your right shoulder. Then you can draw the left shoulder down. And you can play with the angle of the chin, whatever feels the juiciest for you. And then slowly bring the chin toward the chest. Left ear to left shoulder. Pause for a minute. Draw that right arm down to lengthen through the side of the neck. Option if your neck feels like it's able to, you can either bring the chin up and all the way back, or you can just do half circles, moving from one side to the next. So I want you to take a few rotations. And the invitation is that as you're doing this, you are fully present with how the rotation and how the muscles are feeling with this movement. And so in these type of embodiment practices, we are fully absorbed with the experience of the cells and the tissues. So if there's a particular area of the neck that is kind of begging for your attention for a little bit more time and hold, by all means, let the body direct your practice. When you feel balanced on both sides, just bring the neck back through neutral. Inhale, you can slowly rise the arms high, keeping them wide. And then exhale, you can sweep them toward the right side. Then bring the left palm towards the right knee. And then just feel the rotation from the base of the spine. So rather than having this twist originate into the upper body, I want you to feel deeply the twist as it starts at the base. And with your mind's eye, just trace this rotation of the spine until the chin is just a natural extension of this rotation. Keeping the left hand onto the right palm. Inhale, the left arm comes up and into a diagonal. So you can use the palm holding onto the knee as support. And then start to breathe in between these intercostal muscles between the ribs. So imagine the space between each rib extending. And then as you exhale, bring both palms to both knees so you're crossing into the front of the body. And then bring the chin to the chest and round backwards so you can really bring the attention and the breath into the space between the shoulders. Let's take 3 breaths here. The soft jaw. And know that the breath and your attention is just gently untangling this experience between the shoulders. Your next inhale, releasing the arms, you can kind of just dissolve them and then again bring them high and feel the space, the tops of the fingers. And then exhale, sweep them toward the left side. Finding a tall, proud extension of the spine. These twists are really detoxifying, so you can imagine like you're wringing out a cloth, all the toxins of your organs. Getting a gentle massage to release the tissues. That right palm stays onto the left knee. Inhale, the left arm comes up and towards the right. And then breathe space into the left side lung. Exhale, both palms, both knees. Again, lean back, chin to chest. Nourish the space between the shoulders. Inhale, releasing the palms, bring the arms high and just stretch up and out of the waist. And then you can bring the palms down through the heart center. Keeping your feet rooted onto the earth. Just start to do some gentle spinal movements. So you can even just bring your palms to your knees. And then if you feel the space of the low back, so you can just start to feel, maybe you can go forward and back and just feel your pelvis tilt. So we'll just do some seated cat-cow. So starting from the base of the spine, start to tilt the pelvis back and then arch the spine, draw the shoulders together, looking up if the neck allows. And then from the low back, start to round the low back, round the spine, chin to chest. And then just take 3 to 5 rotations like this. And I kind of give you a range just so we don't get caught up in the numbers, but rather just feel the full extension for a few moments. And we'll come back into neutral. And then we'll do that seated pigeon. So taking the right ankle on top of the left leg, on top of the left thigh, and then flex into the right toes. And so this can be a lot right here. If you need a little bit more, you can just kind of gently press down onto that right knee and just sit here for a moment. Now, if this doesn't feel like enough for you, you might at some point start to play with coming forward with the chest. And then know that whatever sensation you're feeling is just the tissues asking for a little attention. And we can bring that attention simply by directing the breath. So I often like to use the imagery of that portion of the body itself breathing. So you can imagine that there is a lung on the inner hip. And that as you breathe in, that inner hip is extending and widening. And then as you breathe out, it's relaxing.
Inhale, you can come back up, releasing the leg, and then switching sides, bringing the left leg over top of the right, flexing into that foot to protect the knee. And then either staying here or using the palm to gently apply some pressure. And potentially just gently leaning forward. As you lean forward, imagine that the back of the hip is coming back. And so we find lengthen through the low back. So we're not leaning forward in such a way that we're just rounding through the upper back, but rather we're pushing that low back and really creating an extension through the low back here. Makes it a little bit more active. You can absolutely do it quite passive, but it is helpful to kind of nourish the low back in that way. And then come back in through seated. And then if we feel comfortable with standing pose, is that okay? Thumbs up, thumbs down? I'm good with either. Thumbs up, okay. This is going to be really just so gentle, but it feels really, really good. So it's one of those poses I find can like make me feel like I'm tripping after. So you just stand tall onto your mat and then start to tuck the chin. So we'll just roll down. The chin comes towards the chest, and then the upper back gets really heavy. And then you just start to let the shoulders hang and get really heavy through the low back until you find your edge. And just take a breath here. Really let the upper body hang. With a full exhale. And you can gently bend in through the knees. And again, starting with the low body, so the low tailbone starts to kind of roll back up. Let the shoulders be as heavy as possible. Then you come to standing, maybe the arms come behind, high when they get there. Do this as slow as you can. And then bring the palms to heart center. And relax back down. Do that 2 more times. So the chin comes toward the chest. And let the upper body hang. Heavy, heavy, heavy. You can almost feel the space between the spines start to pull and create length. Full exhale at the bottom. Then bend in through the knees and start to roll yourself back up, but being as slow and heavy. When you get there, the arms might spiral and widen. We'll do one more. In your own time. When you feel complete, just staying seated into your chair, keeping the eyes closed. And then Jane is just going to take us through a little bit of a breath practice. Oh, I feel so much better after that. All right, it feels good to get into the body, yeah. So, we're going to shift now. So just finding a comfortable seated position. And again, your feet can just be flat on the floor. And that just provides the grounding like Christy was talking about with that image of rooting into the ground. Your hands can go on your desk or on your knees, just somewhere where your shoulders can relax, and slightly roll your shoulders back as well. So we're going to practice a breathing meditation called Anulom Vilom. And it's a beautiful practice that balances the sides of your brain and the energy systems within your body. And you can do this at any time of the day. And I like to do it when I'm feeling stressed out, when my mind is really active and moving quickly, because it brings the mind into a more restful state. So in the Yoga Sutras, which are a series of teachings that basically from which yoga sprung from, there's this short little Sanskrit thing I'll say. It sounds beautiful. Yoga, Chitta, Vritti, Nirodha. And it means that yoga calms the thought waves of the mind. Right? So when we're really stressed out, it can feel like things are almost vibrating. If you could see that as waves, it might look really crazy and active. But this process of yoga, physical mindful yoga and meditation, is meant to calm these thought waves of the mind. And Anulom Vilom is like a really useful tool to do this. Okay, so it's very simple, and that's the beauty of it. It gives your mind something to be focused on, and then you feel into the meditation. So I'll guide you through. It'll just be about 5 minutes or so. All right, so let's just begin with the eyes softly closed, or if that doesn't feel right, you can just let your gaze be somewhere in front of you, but very soft so that you're not looking. You're kind of turning inward instead. And just beginning by feeling your breath. Noticing the pace that you're breathing, and just feeling the breath, especially in the nostrils. Taking a moment to notice the pace of your breath and whatever else comes. And then we'll begin the Anulom Vilom. So you can softly open your eyes, and you're going to bring your right hand in front of your face. Good. We're going to bring down the pointer and middle fingers. And if that feels awkward, you can also bring down the ring finger too. But the traditional way is the pointer and middle fingers. Okay, good. So we're going to take the thumb and close your right nostril. So it's actually sealed closed. Good. Now you're going to inhale through your left nostril. Now seal your left nostril with the finger and exhale out your right nostril. Keep holding here and inhale through right nostril. Seal the right nostril with your thumb and exhale out the left. Okay, that was one round, a lot of rights and lefts. I'm going to guide you again, and we'll practice. So inhaling through the left nostril. Seal the left nostril with your finger and exhale out the right. Inhale right nostril. Seal the right nostril with a thumb and exhale left. Okay, you guys have got it. I'm going to guide with a bit less cueing. Feel free to close your eyes. Feel your breath. Inhale left. Exhale right. Inhale right nostril. And exhale left. Inhale, left, long, smooth breath. Exhale, right nostril. Inhale, right. And exhale, left. Another round. Inhale, left. Exhale, right. Inhale, right. Exhale, left. We'll guide you through one more round. Inhale, left. Smooth out the breath. Exhale out your right nostril. Inhale, right. And exhale, left. Now try one more round on your own. If you get confused, don't worry, but give it a try. And when you're complete, keep the eyes closed or soft right hand to right knee or onto the desk. Roll the shoulders back again. Just let them hang heavy down your back and breathe through both nostrils. And hone your mind in on what you feel in the nostrils. Just feel your breath. All the other thoughts are just in the background. Your mind focused on your breath. Feeling your breath in this moment, right now. Just becoming aware of how you feel. Let's take a big inhale through the nose. And then sigh out the mouth. One more inhale. And sigh out the mouth. Wonderful. All right, you can slowly open up the eyes if they were closed. And that is Anulom Vilom. You can Google it. It's a very well-known practice. It's quite ancient and it's extremely useful. So again, if you're feeling a lot of stress, if you're in a state of anxiety, and you can just sit and feel the breath and just do a few rounds of Anulom Vilom, it can really bring you from that fight or flight response into the moment, into this moment that is actually safe and good. All right. So thank you, everyone, and I'll give her back to Christy.
I want to challenge you guys to something. So we love calendars, we love schedules. So I would challenge you to put every day into your calendar, or double points if you do it twice a day. But I used to do this when I was working, and I would actually schedule a mindful minute. And it's really profound how much a minute or 3 minutes in your body throughout the day can really just like bring things back down and into perspective. So just put a little calendar reminder, mindful minute. Give yourself a few minutes to just feel into your body, feel the feet on the ground, doing the practice that Jane shared. And again, it doesn't have to be, a whole hour-long jumping, pumping yoga class to do these kind of embodiment practices. It's actually, in my experience, been more impactful to integrate it just into these like little checking in points, because sometimes too with a yoga class, it's like you're kind of in this other world. You're kind of taken out of the reality of your life and into the beautiful sanctuary of yoga class, which is beautiful. But it's also really beautiful to like be within the chaos and just like be deeply in yourself. And you're like, yeah, it is tax season, and I'm in my body, and it's okay.
I'm gonna get through this.
I'm gonna get through this, and I'm saying that for myself as well.
Even just me getting my taxes to you was stressful, so I can't imagine.
Totally. Yeah, there's a little bit of time. Do you guys have any questions or things you want to hear more about?
Oh, I thought it was fantastic. Just doing some of these techniques that you can do sitting down at any point in the day, just to kind of recenter yourself and yeah, get out of your head for a minute it's fantastic. So definitely I will use this recording over and over to start doing some of this, just reminding myself how to be centered and to think about what's going on in my body, because I'm so in my head so much these days that I totally agree with everything that you presented today that we're all facing. And definitely with the pandemic and that we're so focused on like trying to either not hear about it and talk about it, or we're over focused on it. Everything constantly listening for any new information and all this. So to try to get even though we try to get away from what's happening, we have to consider what that impact on ourselves. So thank you so much for pointing out how our body will make us, will give us that wake up call if we're not being mindful of it on a daily basis.
Yeah, awesome. Glad to hear that. Yeah. Awesome. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much, you guys. It's really great to connect, and feel really grateful for the opportunity and the collaboration, and just the chance to kind of share among ourselves. Thanks, Jane. Thanks, Christy. Yeah.